Good evening, folks. Today, Chris Rajpal, will be the host for the final crossover episode of Startup Odyssey and Product Matters. Before proceeding any further, I would like to thank all of you on behalf of ESET IIT Guwahati for joining with us today, and we extend a warm welcome to everyone out there. And yeah, I forgot to mention, if you've missed out on any of the episodes of Startup Odyssey, don't worry, we've got your back. You can watch it on a YouTube playlist. Well, why exactly have we gathered here today? I'm certain there would be so many queries popping up in your mind right now regarding the internship and the job opportunities in product management domain. And yeah, how can I forget about the nitty-gritties of scaling up your startup? Well, we can't deny the fact that whatever we end up achieving is directly proportional to the strength of our team. And today, we are graced by the presence of a speaker who is a firm believer of the aforementioned quote, and she would assist us to vanquish all our doubts with her expertise. Our speaker for today is none other than Mona Gandhi. Well, the most interesting fact about Mona ma'am is that she was the first female engineer at Airbnb, and she played a significant role in building the company's growth team. Furthermore, she's recognized as the co-founder of an upskilling edtech platform, Upraised. Upraised helps students to get jobs and internship as product manager in several reputed companies. The company is backed by the likes of Kunal Shah, Vijay Shilkul Sharma, and Tanmay Bhatt. And just like I said before, her firm belief is that a startup's ultimate asset is its team. Without any further ado, I would request Mona ma'am to take the helm from here. Today will be a day full of fun and full of learning. Ma'am, I would request you to take the helm.
Awesome. Firstly, thank you so much for having me there. Really glad to be here. I'll be talking a little bit about sort of my journey so far and specifically a couple of things around Airbnb, and then I'll kind of jump over to the things that we're doing at Upraised. And since it's more product related, we'll dig into a little bit of details into why, someone should start thinking about product management, how can they break into it, what should their career paths look like, and then from there on, what can you do currently as being students to kind of get started as product managers. Sounds good. Cool. So let's go. Maybe I'll just first start with a little introduction about myself. My name is Mona Gandhi. I'm the founder and CEO at Upraised today. Before this, I was like Karan mentioned, I was the first female engineer at Airbnb. Uh, Before that, I was at three other startups: Apture, Social Media, and Six Apart. I was at Airbnb for about 7 years, and so a lot of my that's Airbnb was where I actually made the transition from being an engineer to being a product manager. So the first 5 years of my life were as an engineer, and then the last seven has been as a product manager. So I've kind of gone through the transition, got really lucky to do that transition to Airbnb and sort of be the part of their growth story from the very early days. So I started when Airbnb was only 30 folks sitting out of a garage and sort of building the product one block at a time. So a lot of interesting stories and learnings from that journey. I'll share a little bit of that so far. Like I said, most of my early years were as an engineer, and then at Airbnb is when I transitioned into a product management role, and now I'm also an editor and mentor at 500 startups and on the board of PopXO and LBB. Cool. So maybe I'll just, like I said, I'll just kind of break the talk into two parts. First, we'll talk about Airbnb and sort of, their, what did I learn as part of that journey, and then transition into sort of what are we doing at Appraise and why product management. Like, what is so, what about product management is exciting, and why is it now an exciting time to be a product manager? So, firstly, let's talk a little bit about what is growth really. And the reason I'm sort of sharing this is because as you guys think about becoming a product manager, this is one of the most important aspects of understanding product management, because one of the most common misconceptions are around why should I, most people in India kind of think of growth as, just pouring advertising dollars and somehow, seeing the number scale. A lot of that is not, is sustainable. So, thinking about growth from a product standpoint is actually true growth, right? And what does it actually mean? This is an important aspect to understand, and that's actually one of the most exciting things about being a product manager, to actually get your product to the user, see it, make it, have them use it, get that gratification of what you've built, get feedback from them, improve it on a constant basis. This is what will give you a high as you become a great product manager. So, I think back in 1990s, if you were an engineer, that was great, right? Because very few people knew tech and very few people understood tech, and obviously tech was a lot more it was less. There were less no-code tools. There were less abstraction layers. So you really had to understand the nitty-gritties of tech, right? And if you were an engineer, you were very, very highly sought after. In the 2000s is when the culture of product started coming around, right? Companies like Yahoo, companies like Google, companies, and I mean, like, I'm guessing there are also lots of people in this room that probably don't even know what Yahoo is, because it started in 2000s and kind of died away in 2010. But that is when people started to understand that there is this aspect of product. It's just, you can't just have a very tech or a technically sophisticated tool, but if it's not usable for the user, it's not a product. It's not something you can sell. It's just a service. So that's when the culture of product kind of came around in the 2000s. And today, it's about, in order for you to succeed and your company to succeed, or what you're building to sort of succeed, is you need all three. You need great tech, so you need good engineers to build the solution, but you need great product people to kind of be able to imagine what our users want, have empathy towards it, and then ultimately you have to still get the product to the user. So, a good product manager has an understanding of all these three aspects. They understand what good tech is. They have a good, strong foundation in that. They understand what the experience from a user standpoint looks like, and they're able to think about growth, and they're able to think about how to get the distribution so that the product can actually be successful. So these are sort of three things that make it successful. Will make your product successful. So kind of talking about that, there's a famous quote. Why do products fail? Peter Thiel once said, "Poor distribution, not a product, is number one cause of failure." Right, and as product managers, that is something that you have to very deeply understand. You may have a great product, but if you can't get it to the right user at the right time, they're not going to use it, and that's not going to be fun to build as a product manager. So, you specifically asked me to talk a little bit about the Airbnb growth story. So I'll just kind of walk you guys through it. There are some key takeaways, and I've kind of just highlighted those takeaways. These are things that are not just relevant to a product manager, but to anybody that is starting their career. How to think about, how to evaluate a company, how to think about where to go, what to do, things like that, right? So let's talk about that. So I don't know how many people know in this room know this, but back in 2007 is when Airbnb started. It started because the two founders actually needed to make rent to pay for the monthly dues, and so they said, okay, we don't really have extra space in our house. We don't have a room, but we have an airbed. So why don't we put that up and see whether we can get somebody to sleep on it and pay some money so that we can pay our rent. And they put it up on Craigslist, and three guests showed up because there was a design conference that week. And that experience was amazing for the three guests because, Brian and Joe took them around in the city. They were the hosts. They made breakfast for them. And that's where the name Air Bed and Breakfast came about because, the guests were sleeping on an airbed and they made breakfast in the morning. And one thing led to the other, and it became a company. Start 2009, 2008, they were actually, every time there were events, Airbnbs would get booked, but the minutes events would stop, people had no idea. I mean, you know, people wouldn't be comfortable going to an Airbnb, and so the whole demand for Airbnb kind of, did not take off. So they started selling cereal boxes to make up for all the credit card bills that they had to pay about AWS and a bunch of other services. This was when Obama historic election came around, and so they made these two cereal boxes called Obama O's and McCain Gaps. Repackaged cereal and sold it, and made enough money to kind of pay for 6 months of the credit card bills and kept the company alive. And from that day forward, the focus shifted you know, from that day forward, they started focusing on product. That's when the transition to becoming a great company and being a viable business started. They focused on every user. They realized what they wanted. They spoke to every user. They went door to door. They clicked photographs of every single host, every single house. And that's when Airbnb started to take off. And since then, you can see today it's a public company. It has, over 500 million users. It has, 10 million listings. It is what it is because the focus shifted to product and the focus shifted to understanding what is it that the users want and making sure that we get the product to the right user at the right time. So this is what I mean by, uh, you know, uh, great products are built as a combination of great tech, great product, and great distribution. You need to know how to get to that user that can actually value your product. So this is sort of the little growth story of Airbnb. So what are some key takeaways from this, right? First is understanding the value of your own product that it creates for the end user. Paul Graham has previously said it's better to have 100 customers that love you rather than 10,000 that use your product when they're given coupons or cashbacks or any of those things, right? When they're incentivized to use, a lot of people use it, but are they going to be your long-term customers or not? You don't know. So, would you rather have 10,000 such customers that you don't know whether they're going to come back and use your product, or would you rather have, 1,000 customers that love you, pay you, and are willing to give you feedback on a very constant basis? Number two is, trust in your product is the greatest attention hack. What do you mean by trust? Trust means a product that consistently delivers and lives up to the promise it has made is a product that can create trust in its consumers, right? And once you have trust, there is a lot of loyalty and retention to that product. For example, Dunzo promises that is the fastest way to get your groceries, right? And it does that every single time I order groceries. It is the fastest to get home, right? And which is why even if Swiggy says I'm going to give you 10 Amazon or whatever delivery grocery app like a Big Basket or a Grover says, you'll get 30 rupees off or 50 rupees off on your order. You tend to just stay loyal to Dunzo because of the quality of the service that they have. So that's an important sort of mechanism to kind of continue, engaging your existing customers. Uh, it is very easy to kind of think about. It's very easy for you to, as a product manager, make a lot of decisions that are just based on gut, right? And the funny thing about gut is everybody has a slightly different point of view because they come from a slightly different perspective. So when you're in doubt, relying on your data is extremely, extremely, extremely important. That was one of the key things that you need to learn as a product manager. Uh, Being data driven can become your strength to identify insights that other competitors may miss. Keeping an eye on the market, looking at the data and understanding who is using what is the product, why they're using it, can be something that can give you a competitive edge that other companies will not have or other product managers will not have. And if you are able to consistently rely on data, gather insights, and make progress, you also are going to very quickly. You're also going to quickly scale as a product manager in your org because it's something that makes it easy for you to get stakeholder buy-in, whether it's your boss, whether it's the founder of the company. When it's data driven, it's very easy for most people to kind of understand why you're making certain decisions and kind of go with you, right? Uh, Last is, as a product manager, one of the biggest things that you would want to do is, unicorns are built by out executing competition. And what does that mean? It means that as a product manager, you have to, you're the center, you're the nucleus of the organization, and you have to kind of get people to start thinking about executing, thinking about identifying what the roadblocks are, making sure that all these roadblocks are things that you've addressed. You're on top of it, you're able to collaborate across designers, across engineers, across upper management, your teammates, all these folks. So those are some things that Airbnb did really, really well, and that is why we were able to scale as fast as we did. Uh, Last, but not the least, is you also need to understand what, as a product manager, you should also have a point of view on what your ideal experience, what is the ideal experience you want the user to have, right? And once you understand that well, it's easy for you to kind of work backwards from it. And sometimes, it's always better to kind of do these things manually at first because you understand the nuances of how these things are going to actually work before you start to automate certain things because you kind of miss very important insights. So this is one thing that I really, really learned very well at Airbnb. We did that again and again with every single product, with every single launch we had. This was something which was very, very important. And the last key takeaway I have is, your team is your biggest strength. Aligning on what your values are, what do you expect everyone to behave, is very, very important. So you know what kind of people do you want early on your team, and that early team actually defines a lot of what your product ends up feeling, looking, being. And so aligning on core values is much more important than saying, okay, I'm going to hire this person because they have pure capability of, using this tech or using this skill or using this tool. That is not enough. You need to be able to, align on core values. Uh, so long story short, I think being true to the mission is important. And once you're true to that mission, the growth kind of follows. This is something that I learned very early on at Airbnb, and I want to continue kind of doing that at Upraised. That's one of the most important things that I think was the defining factor in why Airbnb grew the way it did, and it continues to grow because they stayed true to who they are, even in difficult times during COVID, when people cancel their trips. They went back to the host and they said, you know what, your bookings, you rely on the revenue you get from your bookings as a primary source of income. We are going to actually not, we are going to give you the money on the host side. They also at the same side allowed guests to guest refunds because they could not travel because of the restrictions, and so they kind of covered for the charges, right? So being true to the mission, knowing who your users are, supporting them through hard times, always ensures that you're going to continue having an audience which is very loyal to you, and it only makes the product really, 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 really strong. Um, so yeah, this is sort of a little bit of the journey of Airbnb, and you specifically asked me to kind of cover this, so I thought I'll kind of start with this. I understand that the point of this. I also want to kind of touch upon the journey of the journey that folks like you guys will have to kind of follow to break into product management. But before that, do you guys have any questions related to this?
It seems we do not have questions right now. If you want, we can wait a few minutes. Maybe we can have questions coming up.
Sure, we can wait a couple of minutes. I'm going to just stop presenting the screen.
So yeah, we've got one question, and that's from Falguni. She
Okay.
asks, yeah, she asks, So she points out on the single source data, the point about single source data that you've mentioned. So she says, what if the source turns against you? Isn't it risky to put all the eggs in one basket?
Sorry, I'm not sure I fully follow the question, but my understanding of the question is, what if the single source of information
So
is incorrect in itself?
she says, what if the source turns against you? I mean, you talked about single source of data in your
Yeah.
presentation, yeah. So she says, if that source, that particular source that we're targeting, what if that turns against us? I mean, it's not in a favor. That's probably what she meant.
So the data saying that we are not doing well. Is that what
Or
she means?
maybe I'm not sure. Maybe that's what she means by that.
I mean, data can't be lying. So if the data is saying that it's not working, but you're thinking it is working, then you should rely on the data. Or if the question is that what if the single source in itself is inaccurate because you haven't done a good job of actually tracking all the information accurately, then that in itself is a huge problem, because if you don't actually have accurate tracking, there's no way for you to know what to go off, right? Without that information, it's almost impossible for you to actually iterate or even improve the product. Um, uh, you said you rely on single, but what if the single source turns against you? Isn't it risky putting all your eggs? I'm not sure what this question means, but if the intent of this question is what I mean by single source of truth, what I touched upon is that you need to have a single source of truth. That means the interpretation of, or sort of a simplified version of that is, you should all be looking at the same data, because data can be sliced and diced four different ways. If an engineer looks at the data from a different slice versus a product manager looks at it from a different slice, but the founder and the CEO looks at it from a different slice, you will have different interpretations of the same data, right? So there should be a single source of truth. The other interpretation of single source of truth is, sometimes you have data that's stored internally inside your company's databases, and in addition to that, you also share it with, let's say, third-party tools like Google Analytics or Mixpanel or things like that. There could be discrepancies in the two sets of data because there could be some errors, there could be some leakage of data. When that happens, the numbers you see internally will be different than the numbers you see on the third-party tools. So you need to know which one to trust. You need to know what you're making decisions off of, which is what we mean by single source of truth, which is you can say that your database is single source of truth, which is everything after the database is just can lead to leakage, but before that it's all kind of intact. But one way or the other, you're going to have to find a mechanism to track these things and have confidence on your tracking mechanism. Otherwise, you can't really make any data-driven decisions.
True.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next question then.
Yeah.
Shivam Kedia asks, incentivization has worked very well for companies like Uber, Zomato. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So, look, I think, incentivization typically works well when you're looking for people to make large behavior changes, right? For example, before Uber, this concept of, being able to order a cab online and being able to pay a premium for it would never have, the concept of would have never taken off if people, you know, because the service is already existing, it's not a new category. You're replacing an incumbent. In order to shift behavior, you have to incentivize people. This is the same for e-commerce, right? So commerce existed before e-commerce, and people wouldn't start using e-commerce unless at least they were the same price or cheaper. So you had to incentivize that behavior. But the challenge with that is you need to know how far you can go, because you need to understand, the ROI on your and sort of the margin on your business. Incentivization for long periods of times makes it very, 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 very difficult for you to sustain growth, which is why if you look at companies like Uber, companies like Zomato, every few months they have to continue raising money because they're burning more money than they're making. At some point, you have to realize that the behavior change has happened, and you have to start increasing the prices. So if you see prices for Zomato today, or you have to find alternate mechanisms like a Zomato Gold or a Swiggy Pro or Super, or things like that, right? So those alternate monetization mechanisms have to come in play. But honestly, from a product standpoint, and also from like pure financial standpoint, Uber and Zomato are not great businesses. They're great products because they've shifted user behavior, purely driven by incentivizations, but they're not sustainable businesses because they just have a lot of cost of operations, and they just have a lot of marketing and sort of cost and just sort of incentivization.
Okay, that sounds good. So,
There's a
yeah,
sorry. There's another
yeah.
question by Saire.
So you want me
Said
to
you
read that
work.
out?
I can read it. You worked as a software engineer, then in product. You have okay. You worked as software engineer, then in product growth, and now as an entrepreneur. What's the major difference in working and learnings from these roles? Yeah, so there's actually a lot of differences. I'll tell you the first difference is the uh, the need for context switching. That is the number one difference. As an engineer, your need for context switching is a lot less than it is as a product manager, and as a product manager is a lot less than it is as an entrepreneur, right? So when you're an engineer, you're focused on a very specific problem statement, and you're focused on kind of just solving it, right? As a product manager, you're required to work across designers, engineers, data scientists, other team members, marketing, and so you have to constantly context switch depending on who you're working with and what you're doing. But as you become an entrepreneur, the people that you interface with and the kinds of problem statements that you have to solve are not limited to just product. You have to solve finance related problems. You have to solve hiring issues. You have to solve, administrative things. You have to solve team building. You have to solve a lot of other things. So you can understand the level of context switching required at each job. Like it gets more and more macro. Your role kind of, if engineering is you can think of engineering as specific, and then it gets slightly more general, slightly more generalist role as a product manager, and then it becomes even more generalist as you become an entrepreneur. So that I think is the number one thing. Number two thing is the number of decisions you need to make on a constant basis. As an engineer, you make decisions, but they're specific to that one problem that you're solving. As a product manager, there are many because you have to decide, you have to make decisions and trade-offs between design, eng, data science, all the things. And at the same time, as an entrepreneur, you have to make decisions all across. So the speed at which you need to make these decisions and your ability to make these trade-offs is very important. Um, and I think the third skill that is different is as an engineer, you build um, as an engineer you build depth. As a product manager, you build breadth, and then as an entrepreneur, you really build a lot of breadth. So that I think are sort of the three key differences. I think, look, neither can exist in the ecosystem without each other. An engineer cannot exist without a product manager, cannot exist without an entrepreneur cannot exist without a product or an engineer. The three are very, very tightly closed. And there are lots and lots of people that have made the transitions like I have, engineering to product, then becoming an entrepreneur. That actually probably is one of the most common routes of becoming an entrepreneur because at every stage you get exposed to larger problem statements, you get exposed to more unknowns, you get exposed to collaborating cross functionally at many different levels, and then you sort of build the confidence to become an entrepreneur. Make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, that's great. So we've got another question.
Yeah.
We have one left. Aditi Oja.
Hmm.
She asks. She actually wants you to a bit try to be a bit more elaborate on tech product and distribution. That's what she asks.
Yeah. Sure. So what do I mean by tech? uh, Tech is take a let's take the problem statement of Swiggy, something that everyone uses. It's probably very easy to understand, right? So if you break apart the company Swiggy, what is it that makes it special? What is tech? What is product? And what is distribution? Right? Uh, Tech is the infrastructure that technology is controlling to distribute demand, right? And distribute demand and supply. So, for example, tech is leveraged for them to onboard delivery partners. They're able to control and they're able to optimize the utilization of these delivery partners because of tech. right? What else is tech? Ability for them to kind of maintain a list of tech tools, sort of support menu items. Every store, where is it located? GPS location, um, uh, ability to map it on a map. All that is tech, right? What is product? Product is how these things are tied together, right? What is a Swiggy genie? What is a grocery part? What is the menu part? What is the restaurant part? Like, all this is kind of product. And if you think about distribution, distribution is the app, right? App is the distribution. So what does distribution do? Distribution ultimately gets the product to the user, right? The app is a mechanism how people, regular users like you and me, are using Swiggy, right? So that's the mechanism of distribution. Uh, Product is the experience itself. So the fact that you can order, the fact that you can ask a genie to go pick up something, the fact that you can see a person and track the delivery, the fact that you get an ETA, all of this is sort of product features, keeping you as a user in mind, right? What is it that you want? And the tech is underlying supporting kind of all these things. So uh, uh, so if I go back to the statement that I was making, which is in the 90s, it was enough for you to just be technically sophisticated, for you to, let's say, have a GPS, right? For you to have let's say, example, like if Swiggy was built in the 1990s, right? What would make a great Swiggy product is, there are not that many Google Maps didn't exist then. You would have to build a mapping infrastructure yourself. Push notifications did not exist then, so you will have to do that. You would have to do it through SMSs because smartphones didn't exist. All these things didn't exist. So as long as just the capability existed, you would be special, because not a lot of companies had the capability of building it. Came 2000, some of this became available, right? There were smartphones, there were maps, the APIs, so it became possible. Then it also became about the experience. So now that everybody has maps, who shows the maps in a way that a user feels more fulfilled and the user gets the information the fastest ends up winning. That's when product became more popular. And then distribution is, you know, first in the 2000s, it was, I'm living in San Francisco and I have access to a product that is built in San Francisco for San Franciscans. And now, because of distribution, anywhere in the world can be doing, like, for example, Air Meet, right? I can be on a virtual conference with anybody in the other side of the world, or on a Zoom, I can be doing that. So now distribution becomes even more important. Just clarify, like, difference between tech product and distribution.
So if you want to elaborate, that's fine. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to ask Aditi, does it actually answer the question that she was trying to ask?
Uh,
Is there a way for people to be, like, interactive, or is this
I think that's through chats.
okay? Got it.
She's
Got
responded.
it. Got it. Got it. Cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we've got another question from Mayank. So
Yeah.
that's in the top. Yeah.
What, according to you, are the expectations from a student aspiring to be a product intern? Yeah. So actually, this is a good segue into. I just kind of quickly talk about Upraised and what is it that we do at Upraised, and why did we start Upraised in the first place, right? So the challenge with product management in general is that there are three key challenges. First is, there is no discipline of education that you just focus on learning how to be a good product manager. You can't graduate with a degree in product management. Number two is, it's a chicken and egg problem, because nobody wants to hire you unless you have previous experience. So, but how do you get experience if nobody's ready to hire you without experience, right? So it's kind of it's very, very hard to break into. And number three is, unlike engineering, the responsibility of a product manager is not binary. It's not, you either know how to write code or you don't know how to write code, right? You know whether your code works or it doesn't work. Product management is actually a way of thinking, and you can give any problem statement, and there are hundreds of ways of solving that problem statement, and each of those 100 ways can be right in the context of where you're solving it, right? So if you have limited resources, you don't have money, maybe solution A is okay. If you have more money, maybe solution D is okay. Maybe if you have more resources, solution E is okay. Or maybe you're solving it only for the Indian audience and solution F is okay, right? So different constraints, different context, every solution can be thought of as a valid solution. So as a product manager, one of the biggest and this is actually one of the core reasons why companies want to hire people that are already have product management experience, because it's a way of thinking. You have to train yourself to think like that. You have to train yourself to be able to make trade-offs in the 100 variables that you're dealing with, right? Also, one of the big challenges, both the upside and the downside of being a product manager, is the ratio of product managers to engineers is 10 engineers to one product manager, right? So hiring a slightly incapable product manager can affect productivity of 10 engineers, right? And if you think about it from a company's perspective, that's a massive risk they are taking, because if you look at the cost center of any company, tech product and design are typically the highest paid jobs, right? And so essentially, if you hire a product manager that's not able to prioritize, right, or that's not able to that's not able to solve problems the right way, you might end up solving the same problem in a very inefficient manner, and something that could have been built in 3 months is now getting built in 9 months. There's a massive loss to the company, right? And so what ended up happening because of that is companies started getting companies started getting very picky about who they decided to hire as product managers, and uh, the rules on or sort of the expectation that you come with some product experience started getting even more important, which is why getting a product internship is actually one of the hardest things to do. Because firstly, I mean, just internships are hard, and product internships are like 10x harder. And so, because of this whole, the downside of having a bad product manager is just extremely high. And so getting that intern who may not be able to live up to the expectations, and have a direct impact on the productivity of the engineers is one of the reasons why people decided not to have product interns. So at Upraised, we said, we try to understand the problem statement. We spoke to about 70 different companies, everybody from small startups all the way to tech mahindras of the world, trying to understand why is it that you don't want to hire freshers. And as I was going through that experience, I realized that they actually are willing to hire interns, but founders actually have hesitation on two things. One is they don't want to hire talent that they have to constantly train, because the duration of the internship is short, that you can't really train somebody and then make them productive, right? And second is they don't actually have HR teams that are very large, like large organizations do, right? That can go to thousands of campuses to find who the right talent is and then hire them.
Okay.
And so because of these two constraints, they decided it's not just worth the effort, because interns come, they stay with us for 3 months or 6 months at most. And if they're not trained, then we spend time training them. And then we just have to send HR teams that take 2-3 months to find the right interns, right? So it's just better to not hire interns. That's when we decided that we'll kind of take that up as a challenge for ourselves and build a platform. We have an internship program called Embark, which we just launched. And through that program, we are doing two things. First is we are every single intern, so we're going to select 300 people from people that register. And each of these interns is going to go through 6 weeks of skilling, right? Upskilling program as a product intern. What that does is it sets you up to be productive in your internship. And if you're productive in your internship, your chance of converting that into a full-time role significantly improves, because you are prepared to actually excel at that internship. That's number one. Number two is, because we've done the process of selection and upskilling, the companies have to just come to us. They don't have to go to 6,000 colleges and 6,000 campuses to do hiring drives to get these interns, right? So it kind of solves the problem both ways. And one of the other things that we wanted to do was one of the big challenges in the internship world, especially in the product internship world, is a lot of people get hired product interns, but they don't do any work that's related to product. It's very program management, very data analyst type work, but it's just said as product intern. So under the umbrella product intern, a lot of interns actually end up doing non-product work. And we wanted to avoid that scenario. So what we've done is we've onboarded only companies that are willing to pay you a minimum stipend of 20,000 rupees. If they're not, because this means that they're going to think hard about whether do they want to hire a product intern or not. Because to hire a non-product intern, it doesn't cost them 20,000 rupees. So only then will they actually hire you, which means that the probability that you get to do product work in the product internship is very, very high. So going back to the question you asked, which is what are the skills required for somebody as an aspiring product intern? There are, I think, 6 skills which are very important. First is product sensibility, right? Understanding of being able to differentiate between a good and a bad product. How does one build that? You can build that over a long period of time by just observing different products, right? Like you see an interesting notification, think about what is the user behavior they're trying to change, or what is the psychology aspect, or why did they build the feature this way, or why did they build the feature that way. For example, like do multiple product teardowns, try to and how good product managers are building great products, like what differentiates Apple from an Android. Just small things like that, develop these product sensibilities. That's number one. Number two is being able to being a great problem solver, right? It's very important, and have structured thinking process, right? In any product, like I said, there is no right answer. There are many ways to solve a problem, and the only way you can get to all the possible solutions is you actually have a problem solving attitude. You are able to break down the problem in very small chunks and identify hundreds of ways to solve this, right? And once you're able to do that, you'll actually be able to make trade-offs very easily. So that's the number two skill. Number three is basic, hustle and being able to roll up your sleeves in execution, right? So being very result oriented, actually shipping something, because ideas are dime and dozen. If it doesn't actually see the light of the day, it's useless, right? Like I can all say like, I can build the next Zoom, but are you actually building the next Zoom? Nobody, unless it's actually out. That's the number three. And number four is ability for you to collaborate, right? A product manager never works by themselves. They work alongside a designer, they work alongside an engineer, they work alongside other product managers. Collaboration is very important, and tied to collaboration is communication. Your ability to write, your verbal and your written communication is extremely important, because there are so many nuances. If you're not able to articulate them well, lots of things are going to get built the way you don't want to build them. Yeah. So these are some things. Internships, I think, are a great way for everybody to get exposure to product. It's also a great way for you to break into product, because when you are interning at a company and people see you performing as a product manager, it gives them confidence, and that increases your chances of converting into a PPO dramatically high. And so walking into a product internship with confidence and the right skill set, I think will change the course of where you end up in your full-time role.
Okay, that sounds great. I mean, it was really good. Yeah, those 6 points are really awesome, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have another question. That's again from Sai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. So can't we have multiple sources of data and then combine them into one? Like if there's some discrepancy in one, other sources to compensate. Yeah, they can, but you still need to know what is the source, right? You still need to know what is that single source of truth that you can rely on, because all sources of data will have different discrepancies for different reasons, and it's on the surface it might sound like you can triangulate this information very easily, but actually it's very, very difficult, because every source has some of their own sort of nuances that you have to understand on why data is different. So for example, maybe one user has an ad blocker, but 10 other users don't have an ad blocker, right? So you might be missing some events on the client side. On the server side, maybe somebody has a low internet connectivity speed, and so the event is not even, their website's not even loading, that nothing really is happening there, versus it's happening for a lot of other people. When you're storing information in your database and then pushing it over to, let's say, Google Analytics or Mixpanel or any of that, you don't have the same identifier. There are lots and lots of services that you use without even creating an account. So how do I know that all these events are tied to Krish versus Sai, right? So there are many complexities to it, and I think the more you get deeper into it, and the more kind of you roll your sleeves and get your hands dirty, you'll realize that it's much harder to combine than it feels on the surface.
Yeah, we've got
Yeah.
another question. That's from Falguni. So she
When you're
asked,
new,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead. When
yeah.
you're new to the entrepreneurial world, ideal. Uh, yeah. So how do you know what your ideal experience will be? Is uh, it's actually it can be simplified a lot. I think the word people obsess a lot more about the word ideal than probably is required. Um, the word ideal is okay. You build a product with a very clear understanding of what is the problem you're trying to solve, right? So for example, at Upraised, we want to build a platform to help people make career transitions, right? We want people, let's say you're a student, you decided got decent marks in 12th grade, you decided to go to IIT Guwahati, and in IIT Guwahati you got a mechanical engineering branch, but you actually want to be a designer. Now you're going to graduate with like IIT mechanical engineering degree, but how do you break into design? Because you don't have a degree, hence your campus job is likely not going to be as a designer, and then your first job defines what your next job is going to be, and so on and so forth, right? How do you break out of it? So we were very clear who the user we are helping is the user that wants to break out of what their pedigree is, right? And so what does an ideal experience look for them? An ideal experience for them is, I want to firstly understand, I think I want to be a designer. Do I have the skills to be a designer? Because I don't have formal education in it. Do I have the foundation in it? Then, if I have the foundation, what is the gap that I still need to fill to actually become employable? Right? Which is what the education system for, let's say, as a mechanical engineer, you got taught in college. You need to substitute that for design. And then ultimately, after I fill that gap, am I able to actually convert into a job? Right. So what is the ideal experience for me? Ideal experience is I know whether I'm capable. I can bridge whatever the gaps are to get employed, and I want to get employed. Right. So we said this is the ideal experience. In this ideal experience, what is it that I can define? In For you to know what your strengths and your blind spots are, whether you're capable of design, we said, okay, let's design a test. Right. If you give the test and if you actually are able to walk a mile in the shoe of a designer, then you'll be able to do this, right? So let's just do that first. So that's how we solved it. So then we said, okay, how do you bridge the skill gap? Okay, we said, okay, let's build a learning journey that takes you through. It's personalized for you. It's going to take you through what your blind spots are, and it's going to take you through all the things required for the job you desire, not I desire, right? So there is a start point, there's an end point, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to go from the start point to end point. So my ideal experience definition is anybody that has a starting point that is good enough for you to get to the end point, I'm going to show you the path. That is what Upraised is going to do. Same at Airbnb. Airbnb, we said, okay, what does the ideal experience look like? Ideal experience is any city I want to travel to, I can find a host, the local, that can help me experience the culture of that place very easily, right? So how do we do that? We're going to make host properties available. We are going to make it searchable for the guest. We are going to make it easy for them to book. We are going to help them communicate faster. When they get there, we are going to make sure that the host and the guest can talk to each other. They can provide guides. They can provide experiences. They can do all these other things, right? They can be vague. What is vague is the tactics of how you implement the ideal experience. They are vague. You're right. When you start, those tactics are vague. But your understanding of what your ideal product should be or the problem statement is trying to solve cannot be vague. Otherwise, there is no direction of where you're going. What you're looking to solve defines the ideal experience. That should not be vague. How you solve it, you'll have to iterate on it, right? You'll try 5, 10 different things, and then you'll kind of get to where you want to be.
So yeah, we've got another question from Rohit.
Yeah.
It says, how can tier 3 engineering students get into product management right after undergrad?
I think the best way to do that is through internships. Like I said, I honestly think that my fundamental belief is internships are a great way to make up for the lack of flexibility in our education system, right? I did my undergrad in India, and I did my master's in the US. And I can tell you, the education systems are world apart. Okay, one of the biggest differences in the education system is the flexibility. In the US, you can start as an undergrad, let's say in mechanical engineering, but you can graduate as computer science, right? And you can do a few credits, you can transition, you can transfer, you can do lots of things because you discover where you started is not where you want to end up. In India, where you start is where you end. right? If you started as if you started in computer science, you end in computer science. You started in industrial design, you end in industrial design. You start in mechanical engineering, you end in mechanical engineering, right? Also, very few of us actually spend the time to think about where we want to start. We optimize for college first and then the branch later, right? And so what ends up happening is your first job is from campus, which is related to your degree. Your second job is related to your first job, slightly better pay, slightly better responsibilities. And then people that want to break out of it typically end up taking the MBA route. They're like, अच्छा MBA कर लो, पाप धो लो, पहले जो भी किया था छोड़ दो उसको, right? So nobody can ask me पहले क्या किया था, अभी मेरे पास MBA है. I just think that's a very suboptimal way of I don't think this is enabling people to realize their full potential, right? You have a desire somewhere else, you're passionate about something, your skill level is, your strengths are somewhere else, right? Wherever your strengths are, you have the opportunity to actually do an internship. Nothing is stopping you from getting an internship in area that you that's your strength, right? You are a designer, you want to be a designer, you come from a mechanical engineering side, that's okay. Get an internship in design. That's your fastest way of making that transition. That is the fastest way for you to actually get the flexibility that is lacking in the education system today. And this is actually one of the biggest reasons why we decided to launch Embark. So if you go to upraised.co/embark, you'll see what we've done is we just want to make it easy for companies to support the internship culture. We want to take away the pain from the companies, which is, I don't know if the person is qualified, and I don't want my HR to focus on going to 6,000 colleges to hire 10 interns, right? If you can make it easy, I will support you and I will hire, right? And if we make it easy, then companies come hiring, and if companies come hiring and candidates that have skill get that first exposure through an internship, it solves for the flexibility or the lack of flexibility we have in the education system. And so Embark as a program is available to all students everywhere, right? And we are making special efforts. We actually have an entire campus ambassador program to reach tier 3 engineering colleges, because they have very limited exposure and limited opportunities of getting internships, and especially internships in in tech environments that are fast growing, fast paced, high impact work, right? They typically end up in very slow Cognizants and the Infosys of the world, where you're sitting on the bench for like 6 months of the first of your first job. And I just don't think that's a great learning experience for anybody.
Okay.
I firmly believe that as a student, you should be doing 2, 3, 4 interns before you look for your first job. Like there are zero excuses for you to not do it. Like this is, internships are a great way for you to understand what the real life looks like. Internships are a great way for you to get exposure to multiple career paths before you decide which one you want to go for. Internships are a great way to build a network, meaningful network, not just network on LinkedIn, like a meaningful network that people that will actually vouch for it. Internships are a great way to find mentors who believe in you. And internships are a great way for you to find some of the best full-time opportunities there are.
Sounds fair. So now I had a question of mine too. So
yeah,
please. So I was going through a PPT. You were just presenting them. So one of the points that I really liked was the fact that the ultimate asset of a startup is actually its team.
correct.
Yeah, so for a team, we need to have contacts. We need to have people who can work for us, who can take us from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get in contact with these kinds of people who will be able to assist us to get from A to B?
Come to Upraised. But no, look, team is your asset. Team is you're only as strong as the weakest link on your team, right? As an entrepreneur, as a founder, I'd say 60% of my time is just focused on finding great people. That's what I care about, right? If that's great, everything else will fall in place. But if everything else is great and we don't have a team, then there are only ideas. All kuch nahi hoga. And so where do you find these people? It's a great question. It's $1 million question. It's not a question that has one silver bullet. Like you go to LinkedIn and you put this keyword and suddenly you'll find like 20 great people, it's not going to happen. You have to spend the time to build these relationships. You have to spend the time to build the network. Uh, Teams are the ability for you to build a team is one of the reasons why you'll see valuations of a serial entrepreneur be very, very high, because his ability to build a team is much higher than somebody who's a first time founder, right? Because they've had a team previously, they can get something started very quickly. They know the exact designer they had worked with. They can vouch for them. They can get them there, right? But how do you get started if you're a first time founder? How do you get started? Uh, for most people, for most great people, actually before that, there is a different type of a DNA that you require as part of your team when you're in the ideation stage, pre-product market fit, right? Then there is a different set skill required to go from pre-product market fit to so the 0 to 1 problem has different skill set, 1 to 10 problem has a different skill set, 10 to 10 million is a different skill set, and 10 million to a billion is like a different skill set, right? And so at every stage of the company, you have to find people that are excited about your mission, excited about your purpose. They align to it. They value it. They see the impact, and they want to contribute, right? And then, uh, as an entrepreneur, it's your responsibility to provide them the problem, provide them the ability to sort of empower them to execute and build, right? What you promise them. So there are some essential things. One is knowing at what stage you are in the company and what type of DNA you need. At an every DNA, you have to, at every stage, you have to offer, you have to have an understanding of different things. Like I said, somebody at, 10 to 1 million stage has to think about processes, introduction of new processes, introduction of organizational structures, performance reviews. You don't have to think of all these things when you're 0 to 1 problem, right? You're not thinking about these things. So, yeah, you first know where you are, you know who you want, and then you find people that match the skill that you require on your team. And then you have to get them excited about your mission, about your value statement, value prop. You have to be able to have them see the impact that they can create, that you are seeing from your product. And I think, yeah, as long as these things happen, generally, people that are attracted to your mission will show up.
That's great.
Yeah,
Uh,
but it's the hardest problem to solve.
Indeed, it is.
Yes.
So
And the
yeah,
whole point of there's a whole point of starting a place, which is it should be easy to find great talented people, and it should go beyond sort of pedigree of like I just went to an IIT, or I just I'm at an IIM. There's this talent everywhere. People should be able to access this talent more freely, and sort of people should uh, we should be able to level the playing field for everyone, so that more more folks in the tech ecosystem that have the opportunities can fulfill them, and more people that have the skill and the capability can access them, so that the ecosystem kind of grows, right? Otherwise it's the same set of people that kind of just keep relating in the ecosystem.
yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
great. So, considering we have elapsed all the questions, this brings us to the end of the session. Is there anything, ma'am, that you'd like to add in before we wrap up the session?
Yeah, like I said, guys, if there's one thing that I would advise when I would advise myself when I was younger, would be to kind of just do lots of internships. There are zero reasons for you to not do internships, and go check out Upraised. Go check out Embark on Upraised. This is exactly what we're trying to do. Give us honest feedback. Our objective is to make internships possible for every single person. So if you have friends, juniors, tell them about it. Spread the word. It's free for students. We've actually partnered with industry experts like Tanmay Bhankurwariku, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, Saptarshi, Miss Malani, to do these internships, right? So that they can support the upskilling cost, they can support the placement cost. The students don't have to pay anything, and they get access to some of the best opportunities that are in the high growth startup environment. This is where jobs are going to lie in the next 5 years. So you better. This is your shot at making an inroads into that ecosystem while getting paid and while doing very, very meaningful work. So it's a total win-win for for the students, and I really hope all of you make the most of this opportunity. Tell your friends. Like I really hope we in the next 2 3 5 years have very large spread internship culture in our amongst our students, because I think that will just change both your confidence when you go into a full-time job, your ability to identify where you want to go firstly, know what you want, reduce the time it takes, and get away from all this, like I just have to do an MBA to break out of it, I have to do this, I have to pay another 20 lakhs to do this, do that, get another certificate, spend 2 years. 2 years is not short amount of time. People build entire startups in 2 years.
Yeah.
And there you are sitting there and just reading another set of lecture notes that you don't really want to read. And so I really hope we have a really thriving internship culture, and I hope Upraised makes it possible.
Great. So, thank you so much, ma'am, for joining with us today. That was
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
It was an absolute insightful session, I would say, and thanks
Thank
for
you.
enlightening us as well. The interactive Q&A sessions and the presentation were absolutely spot on. Our team is most grateful to you for the kind efforts. And I would like to take this opportunity to appreciate the contributions of all the people who have worked hard enough to make this day a success. We would not have been able to achieve it without everyone's sheer dedication and support. With this, we come to the end of a successful first season of Startup. Thank you so much, ma'am, once again. It was a great session.
Thanks, Krish. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Good luck, guys. You have my email address. It's mona@upraised.co in case you have any questions. Happy to answer them.
Sure, we'll post them in stats.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, guys.